The Conservators Center in Caswell County is still closed after the deadly lion attack on Sunday. It's not clear when it will be reopening. We went by the gate today and it was locked. We do know there are employees there working as an investigation is underway. WFMY News 2's Erica Stapleton is looking into what we can expect next.
We know of at least 3 agencies involved in this whole situation: the USDA, the Caswell County Sheriff's Office, and the state's Occupational Safety and Health Office, or OSH. OSH investigates any time there's a person hurt or killed at work in North Carolina. They confirm they're involved in the case at the Conservators Center, looking into whether there was a violation of health or safety standards when a lion attacked a 22-year-old intern, Alexandra Black, while she was cleaning a cage. An investigator will go to the site and collect evidence and talk to witnesses there. These investigations can take anywhere from a few weeks to several months, so it might be a while until we learn something on their end. But here's what we know from the Sheriff's Office. After Conservators Center staff tried to subdue the lion with 3 different tranquilizer darts, deputies ultimately had to shoot the lion to death because the darts were not putting the lion to sleep. As we found out, that's not unusual.
If that animal has gotten worked up, it is harder and harder for those tranquilizers to work. The adrenaline is overriding those drugs.
That's Catherine Burtock, the assistant director at Carolina Tiger Rescue in Pittsburgh. They're also a USDA-regulated facility like the Conservators Center. Burtock says the USDA does safety inspections randomly and has control over licensing.
They can do things like remove licenses if they feel like the facility is not able to keep their animals or the humans safe. They can take away your exhibitor's license, which is the type of license that we have.
We have been trying to get more information from the USDA about what the attack means for the Conservators Center's license or the investigation. We have not been able to talk to anyone there because of the government shutdown.
Erica, thank you. Black's family has released several statements about the lion attack. They asked anyone who would like to honor her to make a donation in her name to the Wolf Park in Indiana. She was an intern at that facility before coming to North Carolina. Many questions remain about the attack and the Conservators Center. You can find updates and learn more about the investigation on our website, WFMYnews2.com.